speak to us now, as we were having this conversation with the local government extension by 1 year. The Attorney General held a press conference yesterday. Well, you know what, let me see if my opinion, you share your thoughts and opinions with us on that press conference.
I think that he did what I would expect him to do. That is, he tried to, I don't want to use, the word in my mind is spin, and that word is there in my mind because I saw that on the front page of the Express. But he did try to shed light on the judgment in a way that was favorable to the government, or at least downplay the fact that the law lords went against the position of the government. As I said, not unexpected of him to do.
But to some extent, we do have to say that it isn't unfair of him or wrong of him, because the critics are all like chomping at the bit to say, see, yes, we were right. But the problem is the critics were throwing out things like unconstitutional. Yeah. And one of the things that he pointed out, and that's the one part where I appreciate him having a press conference. Well, that's not what the law lord said. They didn't say that. So you could keep saying that all you want and say call elections now, but really and truly, as we've discussed in the segment before, it's not about what the government did wrong per se, although I'll get to that in a minute. It was the fact that, look, piece of the legislation that would have been very useful to prevent all of this was left out. So now the interpretation, more or less, judges have to interpret the law. Indeed. Who knew that they could do that sometimes, that they have that function?
I'll tell you what, with all the fluff that you just mentioned, for the sake of the show and the viewers, what is your theory?
My theory, okay, this is my theory, because again, the root cause is the fact that I think that it wasn't written well. And this is not the first time with this government that we have looked at a piece of legislation and it's like, this doesn't seem to be written well, because somebody has to come and say, well.
I wouldn't go as far as to say it wasn't written well. As I said, the dissenting judge said to him, the express words were clear.
My thing, though, is, at the end of the day, whether you agree with the minority or the majority, to me, it's obvious enough what's missing should be there. Right. You know, we're not, it wasn't like a word was missing by mistake on a typo and it changed the interpretation or anything. No, a big chunk. What do you do moving forward? Oh, we don't need to think about that, because are we thinking about how we're going to implement this? And so it leads me to my point where, because the AG, he's coming out, he's very adamant. I don't necessarily think he's a man of zero integrity. I think, look, if he's going to be this confident that the government had no ill intentions, I do wonder if to some extent it was written how it was written, and it was only after the point they realized, wait, now we kind of left something out.
It was written how it was written.
It was written how, as in it was missing the total, how do you transition between the previous act and the current act. And then the government was potentially stuck in this, well, what do we do now?
But I don't, it would not have been a problem if it was proclaimed after a particular date.
Right, but my point is, they got the interpretation. I don't think that they necessarily wrote it that way and they set it up and they whatever. Now, therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem. Because I honestly was thinking last night, maybe this was just something of incompetence rather than malice, because that's what a lot of the critics are saying. It's against the Constitution. I think it's unethical. It doesn't mean that it was intentional and ethical.
I disagree with your theory completely.
But the fact that, yes, if they just proclaimed it after the election, right, therein still, that is the one big question. But I just think, you know, the AG was quite confident. I do think going into it, they weren't necessarily looking to get one over or whatever. And this falls on the opposition too. That when that law went into Parliament, was debated by both sides. Nobody brought it up. So they all need to be questioned.
Are you sure? Hold on, before you continue, I will disagree with you there. Are you sure nobody brought it up? Did you watch the entire debate?
True. Let's put it this way. If it was brought up and it was left and it was allowed to pass, then it's even worse.
No, it was not allowed to pass, and that's precisely the reason why it went to the courts. Because you remember, it was the simple majority that was required, and that is why opposition took it to court, because it was led by Anaram Logan. Janty Lachminial was even on that legal team. But I disagree.
Yeah, but then they take it to court only after it was fully proclaimed.
But
and then wasn't that it seems as though, because the Privy Council basically said.
The Privy Council said that they didn't have any extraneous material to help them with interpretation. So I am taking that to mean there was nothing, no hands-on, nothing for them to but to assist them with interpreting
So
what the intention of Parliament
Because that would have been included in
It would have.
the plaintiff's case.
The reason why I am disagreeing with your theory is because you're saying it was written how it was written. No, because based off of what was said, it was the clarity within the legislation. That is the argument that is being made. So I don't necessarily think that it was just let this way and they realized afterwards. Guess what? And bear this in mind, the Privy Council 3-2 has ruled against the government. We accept that, we understand that. But at the same time, I cannot help but also take away what the Attorney General has stated with respect to our appeal court here in Trinidad. They actually did not rule against it. It went to the Privy Council and it was 3-2, and even the dissenting opinion also applies here. So then,
That's why I have my theory, because they didn't rule against the government, they ruled against the government's interpretation.
And then remember what was said in the Privy Council. The primary argument made before the Court of Appeal was not the interpretation argument, it was the constitutional argument.
Yes.
So they took a different spin before the Privy Council in any case. So maybe if they had done the argument a different way before the Court of Appeal, it may have had a different result.
That's an interesting
But
point.
I want to clarify something you said.
Sure.
If it's not that if they had proclaimed this after the next election, because then we would still have the problem, because the new people would still be the incumbents. So after the term, the incumbent's term had expired in December, if it was proclaimed after that,
but before
the election, then we know the people we are going to vote in would have a 4-year period. That would avoid the whole problem.
But this is why I said, I said it to you in the last segment, this is why I said it may have worked out better, but it could still go both ways, because somebody who voted in the election could then come and say, listen, I voted for this person for 3 years. I didn't vote for them for 4 years.
So it has to be done before the election.
And this is why I said, ethically, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, it would have been understood if it was done right after the election, regardless of the result of the election, simply being because the election was due. Right before the election, you're extending the term. The election was coming up. People wanted to vote. There have been cries all throughout the years, all of last year, about what's taking place at a local government level. I don't think people fully understand local government reform because it has not been fully explained to them. So we are doing a disservice in terms of the educational aspect. But the point I'm trying to make is, if they did it before or after, the arguments would still apply.
So if they should have done it at the end of this January 2023, the expiry of the incumbent's term, that three-month period where your rule has expired and we have an election coming up, if they did it in between there would be no argument.
Right, because they get to choose when the date of elections is. So that's what I meant when I said after the election. Sorry that I wasn't clear. But go on.
No, that's it. So.
No, my thing is, though, I really honestly believe it's not as though, the government had this nefarious plan, oh, we'll do this and we'll do that and then we'll proclaim it just before. I just think they kind of wasn't sure what they're doing, and they're like, we need to get, what they do is they wanted local government reform before the next local government election because they wanted to have a political win. So it is not, I'm not too sure if it was a case of, well, we need a year to pad our stats so that we can win the vote. I think it was more they wanted to get this in, because if they wait, they wanted that year to get it ready. So because it wasn't ready. So they couldn't just roll it out, have the election at the end of last year and roll it out.
Where are we with local government reform?
All the sections haven't been proclaimed, though.
Right. So then,
exactly. That's the thing.
They have
not been proclaimed, so they're not ready. Right? They weren't ready. If local government elections happened last year, when it was supposed to happen,
by March this year.
Yeah. I'm not sure, because you're now saying where is it?
You kindly forgive me, Sean. You have me slightly confused this morning with your argument, but that's fine. The other side of it that I'm trying to get at as well is that would the government have even done the extension after the election, dependent on the results of the election? Bear in mind, the last election was 7-7 in terms of councils across Trinidad and Tobago.
But what is the extension?
In other words, if the government, again, let's just say for whatever reason, they unfortunately lost the election. Let's say it went to 8-6 for some reason, or 9-5, or whatever, against the government. Would the government then take the decision to say, okay, you know what? the majority of us, of our party, is not ruling these things. So therefore, it don't make sense to extend the life by a year. Do you think that would have also been applicable in terms of their thinking? Because we have to think like these politicians, huh? We have to think like these politicians.
But then that still operates now, because if we've done it now, we still have that fear, or that could still happen now, and now the term is 4 years. So that still can exist, that they could lose.
They could lose. Of
Yeah.
course they could lose. No, I understand that. But again, bear in mind, it also is a buffer. Let's be practical. It was a buffer for them to also get a lot more done. For example, I can tell you that since December last year, I've witnessed it with my own eyes, the amount of works that are being done at a local government election. Sorry, not a
Local
government
government
level.
My apologies.
Well, that is the argument someone
Right.
has made, and I could see the value in that argument, that they made the proclamation to get the year to do work.
So if the government lost the election, because we cannot determine the outcome, we don't know until the election actually happens.
Yeah.
But let's just say, in an instance, they lost the election, is it then that they would say, okay, well, we're going to extend the life by 4 years? Or is that we'll wait for the next election?
But we don't know, and that's
But that's my
speculation.
point.
We don't
That's my
know.
point. Based off of everything that has transpired, we don't know what they were thinking or doing it behind closed doors.
But to me,
so
it's a
I
good
can only
point.
speculate on certain things. We can make the argument as to the facts.
Why the debate matters is it goes to what is the motivation. To some extent, there are reasonable arguments to say, look, the government is pulling a fast one, and it's unethical behavior if that's the case. I
I
saying...
don't see the ethical argument here in extending the life of... The only thing that I found interesting...
Yes, it is legal, but technically speaking...
But what would make it unethical to do that?
Because...
Explain that one to me.
Democratically, they were
Yes.
voted for 3 years.
Right.
And then it's now 4 years.
Okay.
And I understand that it could be done legally, but especially given a time period where the political climate is hotly contested.
Yes.
All right, let me give you...
That's...
Let me tell you
But Sean, yeah.
No, in the practical terms, let me spell it out for you.
Yeah.
My counselor does nothing, right? I've written to my counselor. I've spoken to my counselor. I don't even know if my counselor still occupies his office, right?
Boy.
Whether or not it be through drain, through garbage, through dealing with situations, or the mere fact that suddenly out of nowhere, your counselor appears trying to get the road paved, right? But the counselor, and WESN have a problem with leaks still. The council decided to pave the road over the leaks. So a freshly paved road, it have water still coming up. So guess what? WESN have to go dig out this freshly paved road.
Yes.
I don't want my council there for another year. I cannot deal with this for another year.
Yes.
Right? So that is what I mean from an ethical standpoint, and from people who are seeing what's taking place. I am not necessarily getting the service that I need.
Yes.
There may be instances where they're saying, my council is great, I'm getting the services that I need.
Yes.
I can't afford to put up with this for another year.
I hear you. Okay,
Right.
I hear your argument. But you know what I found was interesting that I never knew, and I learned from the ruling, is that if a councillor resigns before their term comes to an end,
They could be fined.
there's a financial penalty to that.
Yep.
I never knew that.
Yeah, I never knew that either.
I thought that was
never
so
knew that either,
revealing.
yeah.
So even so I thought that was unfortunate. If you were a councillor, and I knew past councillors who said their 3 years was enough, they didn't want to go back, and then you would now be forced an additional year. I thought that one was a very interesting point.
Ironically, one can make a case that also makes it unethical. It's like, no, you will stay
You
trapped
have to
there
stay
for
there.
another year.
Although some did, some were grateful for the year. Some, I am sure, and I think they said that Mr. Balgumin actually had the affidavit of another who said they really did not want that extra year. So I found that was a very interesting point that I never knew.
I just found, I don't think it's
I
that
didn't know it
much
either.
about malice. I think it really was a combination of errors, but ultimately the government wanted to look good for local government, so they rolled it out when they rolled it out because they needed it before the next local government election. But as you said, it's we don't even know what it is yet, and now they're caught potentially with their pants down because it has to come now.
But are they caught with their pants down?
Potentially, that's what I said, potentially.
The PNM has already sent out nominations for. So to me, I don't know if they knew that this judgment was going to go this way, or they always had the intention to have elections fairly soon. But PNM has made the call for nominations for local government.
Yeah, but
councils.
I doubt they wanted the election soon. I doubt.
So you think they got an idea that they got the ruling?
No. I doubt this is just
the UNC has said that they're ready for local government elections.
So
Let's call tomorrow.
everybody's-
Is the PNM ready? Does PNM
that's-
have all the
well, I don't know, but
did
as
call
I
for
said, they called for
candidates.
candidates
They did call
about
for
a week or two ago.
Well, so they're not
Yeah.
ready for tomorrow.
Maybe
because
they were-
the campaign hasn't even started.
Maybe they were hedging their bets, which is smart.
But really, Keaton, you think the UNC is actually ready? They have their people ready for
Listen,
government elections tomorrow?
My opinion is, I don't believe any party ready if elections are called tomorrow.
Yes,
Right?
I agree with that. Yes.
I don't believe
Yes.
any party is ready. But you see that point about if you resign before your term is up, there's a financial penalty. I didn't know about that either.
Yeah.
I think that's unfair.
I think that's unfair.
I think that's
Yeah,
unfair.
yeah,
But anyway, General John Bates, this is
Yes.
where we conclude
Yes.
our time this morning. Thank you
Yes.
so much. It's always good to see you have our conversations because I like the debate. It's good. We get an all-encompassing show where there are different opinions and you may pick up on things that we don't pick up on, so it's always good to see you.
Like the financial penalty. I mean, who would have thought giving up power is going to cost you money? I don't understand. So backward.
But giving up power probably could cost you money
No,
in the
no, no,
other
no,
sense,
no,
not
no,
in the
no.
sense
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, semantic. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yes.